Morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great day, and I hope you enjoyed a wonderful family day on Monday. I just wanted to send out a quick video blog this morning, piggybacking off the sermon topic from Sunday. Now, some of you who were there on Sunday were surprised, maybe pleasantly surprised, that the message was only about 35 minutes long, as opposed to the normal 45, 50, 55-minute long messages. That's intentional. I'm trying to, be a little more disciplined in getting to the point and getting in the Word and being a little more concise. But I do want to start supplementing some of the Sunday morning teaching messages with some midweek video blogs, hence what you're getting right now. So if you were there on Sunday, we talked about the future hope, the ultimate future reality as described in Scripture as part of our series Back to the Future. We didn't look back to the history of the church last Sunday to get some ideas and ingredients and some important things that we can implement today, but we look to the future, and it's wonderful that as Christians, as Christ followers, we're not flying blind. I mean, certainly we don't know the exact details of what the future holds, but we do thankfully have a picture of the end of the story, and it's a beautiful picture. It's a hopeful picture. It's a picture that I believe if we have an accurate picture of the end, it'll help us with living out the mission of God today as His disciples, as His followers. And so we looked at Revelation 21 primarily, and we saw a beautiful picture. It's a picture that pushes up against some of the common held belief system about the end times. Because in Revelation 21, we don't see any evidence of an escapist mentality, us escaping the world, which will be annihilated, but we see a picture of a new creation, a creation restored and redeemed. John sees this beautiful vision in Revelation 21 of this heavenly city coming down, and God kind of bringing heaven down to merge and meld with the earth. And we define heaven not as simply a distant, far-off place that we fly to as disembodied souls for the rest of eternity. And I think that's been the picture that's been kind of characterized and caricatured of heaven in recent years, is a disembodied souls floating kind of somewhere off in the distance beyond the clouds. We see it on TV sometimes as playing harp sitting on a cloud, and that's not really the most hopeful, beautiful picture. And thankfully we have a more beautiful picture in Scripture. We have a picture of God breaking through heaven, the God space. Heaven is just another reality. It's another dimension of reality today, because God is seated in heavenly places, but He's also Emmanuel with us. And so the beautiful hope that we're longing for and waiting for and working towards is the day when Christ will return and He will bring that new heaven and that new earth into reality, where everything in the physical realm, everything in all of creation will one day be finally restored, and everything that is evil, everything that is sinful, all pain and suffering will finally be purged from existence, and God will bring down this heavenly city, the new heaven and the new earth, as it's described both in the Old Testament. Isaiah 65 and Isaiah 66 has this new heaven, new earth language, as well as at the end of Revelation, where we see this beautiful picture. And so what are the implications for today? My major point on preaching this message and today is not simply to debate end times theology, but I want to stress the point that how we understand the future hope fuels how we live on mission with God today. Because we only live in the present time. We don't live in the past. We don't live in the future. But how we understand and learn from the past, and how we interpret the future reality and the future hope for us and for all of creation, will kind of influence how we live today and every day. And so I was kind of pressing back against the common notion of an end times rapture and the world being totally annihilated and destroyed. That's kind of en vogue. That's pretty common held belief in the Western evangelical church today. So I want to kind of put that kind of framework to the test today using a biblical interpretive framework that is called the Wesleyan quadrilateral. It means looking at Scripture, and where interpretations are divided in Scripture, we add different ingredients as well. Personal experience has a role to play. We shouldn't let our personal experience trump Scripture, but where people are divided on how they interpret Scripture, we should look at experience, personal and life experience. We should also not check our brains at the door when we come to church or read Scripture. We need to use reason and logic. You know, God's truth is not opposed to reason. Sometimes it transcends reason, but we shouldn't check our brains at the door. And we should look at tradition. We should look at the history of the church. How has the church throughout history interpreted passages of Scripture? Those are all good and helpful things. And so I want to talk about first tradition. For the first roughly 1800 years of church history, you'll find no evidence of anyone subscribing to a view of a pre-tribulation rapture. And when I say rapture, maybe for those of you who are watching this that have not heard that term before, the rapture is the belief as part of a belief system called dispensationalism. It's a belief that before a 7-year tribulation period, all of the faithful believers will be sort of taken out of the equation. They will be taken to heaven with Christ. So in a sense, Christ's return is in 2 stages. He comes back the first time to rapture the church, and then the earth is basically subjected to all of these tribulations, and ultimately it's annihilated. And then finally Christ returns to judge the believers and the unbelievers. Nobody subscribed to this. This was a very foreign concept until a man by the name of John Nelson Darby in about the 1830s came up with this system, this biblical framework. So if based on tradition, church tradition, the rapture mentality doesn't carry a lot of weight because it is relatively a new concept, and it's a concept, as we talk about experience, it's a concept that was birthed through the experience of people and the church in America. You know, up until the time of the Civil War, people in America were of the mindset that, you know, the millennial reign of God, God's kingdom had come and was coming fully at that time. And so we saw a lot of wonderful social reform throughout the 17 and early 1800s in North America. But when the Civil War broke out, this optimistic view of the earth, of society, was kind of dampened and darkened. And so out of that same time period was birthed this kind of dispensational theology, this escapist mentality that the future hope was not a restored and redeemed earth, but it was escaping at this rapture. And that's where the rapture theology comes out and comes into play, is in the mid-1800s. So looking at experience and tradition, we see that it's a very new, a very fresh doctrine. And looking reason, you know, we got to use our minds to think about this. If God is ultimately going to destroy everything in the physical world and the cosmos, what does that say about his sovereignty? What does that say about his power? Is he not able to redeem what has been broken, what has been tarnished? Is he not able to refine, to purify it? Or does he need or want to totally annihilate it? You know, back in the garden when God created, he said everything was good when he created it. And certainly when we look around the world today, we see signs of beauty and love and goodness, but we see signs also of evil, of sin, of this world and the universe not being what it once was or what it should be. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, using logic and using our minds, as well as the testimony of Scripture and experience and tradition, does it make sense that God is going to totally annihilate everything? I think God's big enough and wise enough that when he created the world, knowing fully well the possibility that it could go to hell in a handbasket, so to speak, that he's big enough and sovereign enough to restore, to recreate, to redeem it. Basically, we've got sin and we've got God. Are we saying that sin and evil is more powerful than God? Or are we saying that God is powerful enough that in the end, he will do away with sin and evil, but he'll do it in a manner that is redemptive, in redeeming his good creation, to once again be good, be pure, for eternity. And so those are some of the points I wanted to share, going a little more in depth about this rapture theology. Again, we can agree to disagree on that. That's okay. But my major point is we need to think through how we see the future and the repercussions for how we live life today. Because if we think everything's going to be totally annihilated, our bodies included, that may influence how we mistreat or misuse our bodies. It may influence how we mistreat or misuse the environment and creation, the animals, our neighbors, our enemies. We pick sides in battles such as what's going on in the Middle East. This dispensational theology leads to pro-nation of Israel at the expense of Palestinians. And we can turn a blind eye, or even some people have cheered on the violent activity of one people group towards another, and that is so not the heart of Jesus. Jesus died for all. He loves the world. He's a God of reconciliation and redemption. And as the people of God on mission with God, we should be a people seeking peace, seeking reconciliation, spreading the love of Jesus as well. So I've attached a video after my video blog here. I'd like you to watch this because this is it's about a 25-minute video that talks about more in depth than I've gone into the history and the influence of the rapture theology in America, and it's a very good historical piece. It'll talk about the key players and the dates, but the last 7 minutes in particular talk about the importance of having a proper understanding of the future. And if we have a misunderstanding of the future hope and the future reality, it can skew how we live our lives as disciples of Jesus today. So tomorrow I'm going to blog again, and we're going to look in particular at some of the scriptures that those proponents of dispensationalism, and particular the rapture, that they hold up high. And we're going to take a look at those and see, is there another way to interpret these scriptures that is a little more faithful to the full counsel of Scripture that sees God as a redemptive, redeeming, and recreative God. God bless you guys. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.